In February of 2018, a good friend of Andrew's named Eric McDonald, who is a groomsman in our wedding, recommended me to Andrew. And then he also told our family about Andrew and recommended him highly. And since Andrew was a pastor and had a website, it was pretty easy to research him and just see some of the Bible studies and other things that he'd written. So my family and I did that. And the more I learned about him, I was like, wow, he sounds like a really great guy. And he's been in ministry all these years and he seems really solid and loves the Lord. And so I started to wonder if something was going to come from this. And then when I got an email from Andrew saying that a friend of his and a sister of mine were conspiring to get us together, and would I be interested in just meeting for coffee or something to get acquainted, I definitely wanted to take that first step. My family and I prayed about it. We definitely felt led to take that step. And so Andrew and I were pretty much, we were total strangers when we met. For the first time, we met at a little fun coffee shop called Kava House. And that was March 2nd, 2018.
I was definitely interested in Sarah from the start. I found that she was super interesting and very beautiful and just wonderful to talk to. She asked a lot of good questions and listened well, and we chatted for a few hours and it went extremely well. Afterwards, I thought, wow, this is amazing that someone is so like me and exists. And so I thought maybe I'll ask her out again. And the rest is history.
Well, I was kind of nervous, but I thought that he was very easy to talk to. And I respected everything that I learned about him and about his ministry. And I liked him, and I thought he was very nice looking, and that the whole time went well. And I remember when I got back to the Bright Lights office, just telling my dad and Grace and Nikki, well, he told me his 4 hobbies: writing and reading and biking and coffee. And I remember us all kind of chuckling because those are like 4 on the top of my list too of things that I enjoy. And then I remember saying to Grace and Nikki, like, I don't know if anything is going to come of this or not, but it's just kind of amazing that there's actually a guy like this who's right in our area. One of the first times Andrew and I got together for coffee, Andrew suggested that we both share scripture passages and verses that the Lord had used in our life. And so I really liked that conversation. And I remember one of the verses that Andrew shared was Psalm 112, 1 and 2. Says, "Blessed is the man who fears the Lord, who greatly delights in his commandments. His offspring will be mighty in the land. The generation of the upright will be blessed." And I remember sharing the focus that he had wanted to have over the years on spiritual children and investing in spiritual children and disciples. And it was significant to me that he shared that verse just because that is a verse that I had prayed many, many times over the years. And also in times when singleness had been more difficult for me, one thing the Lord had really reminded me of is that I was called to invest in spiritual children and the joy in that. So it was neat to see Andrew and I just like-minded in that area and how God had led us in very similar ways. And another passage that was really significant to me in our relationship was Proverbs chapter 2, especially verses 6 and 7. It says, "The Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He's a shield to those who walk in integrity." And as I was starting the relationship with Andrew, I just realized I need a lot of wisdom. It's so important. We both want to honor the Lord so much every step of the way, and there's so many people who look to us, and yet we're not experts, and this is not a formula. How do we get to know each other really well in a way that honors God? And how do we guard each other's hearts in the process? And I just need so much wisdom. Well, Proverbs 2 just reminded me God gives wisdom, but we have to seek for it. And I think that's a good thing, that it's a good thing it's not a formula, because it forces us to just seek God for wisdom every step of the way. But the encouraging thing is that God promises he gives wisdom. He has sound wisdom stored up for the upright. And as we ask him and trust him for it, he gives it. And it's encouraging to look back and see the way that he's led as well. And then one other verse I'll mention is Jeremiah 20, verse 12. especially in the harder times with Andrew's back pain, when he was suffering a lot and it felt like a setback in our relationship and just things were going slow because of it and there were a lot of unknowns. And that was a hard time for me too. Jeremiah 20:12 was a verse that the Lord brought me back to many times. It says, "O Lord of hosts, who tests the righteous, who sees the heart and mind, to you I commit my cause." And just remembering that the Lord knows. The Lord knows my desires. He knows my heart. He hears my prayers, and I can commit my cause to Him and trust Him. And if this relationship is of Him, then He's going to bring it to pass. He's going to do it exactly right. His time will be exactly right.
One verse I ran into early on in our relationship is from Philippians 1. Paul prays, "And this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you would be able to discern what is best." And I thought that verse was excellent to pray for our relationship. So first of all, he prays that we would grow in love, and it would be love of knowledge and depth of insight, and that we would also be able to discern what is best. And so there he's praying for wisdom. And so we started praying that early on, and we prayed that God would grow our love, if this is love, and that He would give us great wisdom. Another passage I really like is Psalm 16, and this talks about who God is and finding our ultimate joy in Him. One of my favorite verses is at the very end. It says, "You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there's fullness of joy, and at your right hand there are pleasures forevermore." And the reason I like this so much and we started praying it is because it asks us to find our ultimate joy in God and not one another or in anything else. And so we started praying that our ultimate joy would be found in God. One highlight has been just seeing the excitement of friends and family about Sarah and I. They're not just in favor of the relationship, they're in super favor of the relationship. Over and over again, people are just excited about what we're doing, who we are, how we're matched, and everything. And this has been overwhelming and just such a positive indicator that this is from God. So, for example, after hanging out, one family member, as they were driving away, says, "Sarah is awesome, amazing," and everybody laughed. And another time, a guy came up to me after meeting her and said, "When are you going to propose? Sarah is a treasure." And so it's just been so fun to see the excitement of everyone.
Well, both of our families have been very involved right from the start. That's actually been a really special part of our relationship, is just we've loved getting to know each other's families. And the first year that Andrew and I were getting acquainted, my dad started a Bible study for a small group of men, and Andrew joined in on that, and both my dad and Andrew really enjoyed that. And my family has loved getting to know Andrew, and Andrew's family has made me feel so welcome. After we had known each other for about a year, Andrew and I went to Florida to visit his mom and his grandma and his brother and brother's family, and they made us feel so welcome. I remember Sunday morning going to church with his mother, Pat, and with Grandma Jean, and Grandma Jean was introducing us to people, and she was saying, "I tell them, God saved you for each other." And then we sat down at church, and there's an older lady a few rows ahead of us, and she looked back, and she looked at me and Andrew sitting next to each other, and she looked at Grandma Jean, and she's like, and Grandma Jean's like, and then they both look at Andrew, he's like, and it was fun to see. It has been so fun to see people be excited for us and share our joy. And also, it's just been really humbling to see how many people have prayed for us over the years and their excitement in seeing God bring us together.
People joke that I am the Prince Charming. So Sarah wrote a book called Before You Meet Prince Charming. And people like to joke around that I am the Prince Charming that the book refers to, because now we're getting married, and so I'm in her life. And people just kind of have fun with this, and which is just really funny. For example, at a Valentine's dinner at her church, on my table placement there was my name, and then next to it it just said Prince Charming. And so everybody laughed at that. So I'm really okay with this nickname, just as long as at some point I can come in a horse, wear a cape, and hold a sword.
Well, I was hoping and praying that Andrew would propose this past January when we went to Florida for the second time. For Christmas this year, he had given me the gift of plane tickets to Florida. And then for my birthday, which is in January, he had given me the gift that when we were in Florida, we were gonna go on this Dolphin Explorer boat ride. So I was really excited, and I had in the back of my mind that it could be a good time for him to propose. But when we were on the boat ride, we were just loving it. It was very beautiful, and both of us were having so much fun together. And then they dropped us off on the beach, and we were walking along. But I actually wasn't expecting it at all when Andrew all of a sudden just dropped to his knees and asked me to marry him. And he gave me a ring, and he shared with me a letter that he had written for me, and we had a really special time there and a super special day. In fact, there were so many parts about that day that were so special, it just felt like a gift from God, because God orchestrated things that Andrew couldn't have even done. So that was a wonderful proposal day, January 28th.
The proposal itself went better than planned. It was a wonderful day, and all kinds of things came into place that I didn't even plan or anticipate. It was a beautiful day, and we were on a remote part of a Florida beach, and everything just came together super quickly. I got down on my knee and asked her to marry me, and she said yes, and I was super happy too. I don't think I've ever seen anyone that happy. One quick story about it is a lot of people ask, how did you get those pictures of the proposal since you were on a remote beach? Well, that I didn't plan either. Right when I was proposing, a couple came walking along, and they said, "Oh, I think this is a proposal," and "Oh, can we take your picture?" And then they realized I was still in the middle of it, and then they said, "Oh no, I hope we didn't ruin it." And so we laughed, and I finished, and before they walked away, we asked them to take our picture. And then later, we said goodbye, and the guy goes, "Well, good to meet you. I hope you have a great life."
Well, there's so many things, but just to keep it very brief, one thing I really appreciate and admire about Andrew is his shepherd's heart, his desire to equip and encourage the saints, and to see the way that he does that and the way that he loves people. And I love it that Andrew loves to study the Bible so much. I so appreciate his thoughtfulness and his kindness. Our first summer when we were getting acquainted, Andrew told me that he has 3 G's that he works towards, that he has been striving towards in relationships with girls. Being godly, being full of grace, and being gentle. And I love and appreciate all those things about Andrew. And he also makes delicious coffee.
How long do we have to answer this question? There are so many things that I appreciate about Sarah. One thing is that she is such a joy to be around. She's always smiling, lifting people's spirits, and just spreading God's happiness wherever she goes. One joyful thing is that she is a delight to lead. She follows my lead very joyfully. One word that she uses a lot is sure. For example, "Sarah, would you like to pray together?" "Sure." "Sarah, would you like to go to a coffee shop?" "Sure." "Sarah, would you like to read a book together about our relationship?" "Sure." It's a lot of sures, and that makes me more assured of my leadership. And so she just enjoys following me and my suggestions, and I enjoy leading her. And I think that's one thing that really confirms to us that this is the right thing.
Well, it's definitely affected our wedding planning, of course. And we had invited many to come celebrate with us on May 2nd. So we were really looking forward to that and seeing many friends and family. So of course we've been disappointed that that's changing and that we're doing instead a very small private wedding. But I think there's been some good things for us too because of the virus. I mean, one has just been that Andrew and I have had a lot more time together because there have not been as many wedding details to have to deal with. And so I think that's been really good for us to be able to invest even more in our relationship before getting married. And I think it's kept us really dependent on the Lord because there's a lot of things we just haven't been able to even plan. And so we have to keep surrendering our expectations to the Lord and being dependent on Him. And that's always a good place to be. And I think it's also helped me just remember, okay, what is really important? It's not the wedding, it's the marriage. And there was one night that I was having a harder time just feeling disappointed about the wedding changes and frustrated about wishing I could plan but not having enough information to really plan a lot of things. And then I was just thinking about Mary, the mother of Jesus, and thinking about, well, what happened to her wedding and her wedding plans? And I wonder what kind of plans she and Joseph were looking forward to. I mean, weddings were a big deal in Jewish culture like we see in John 2. And then with the perceived scandal, I mean, who knows what happened to her wedding? And yet I loved Mary's response to the angel when she learned that she was going to be the mother of the Messiah. And Mary said, "Behold, I'm the servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word." And I thought, that's the response I just need to have right now too, now and always. Behold, I'm the servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word.
So COVID has affected our wedding plans quite a bit. It's made some things a little easier, it's made some things a little harder. It's given us some extra stresses, and at other times we've been okay. But we know that God is in this relationship and that it will work out no matter what happens. I think COVID has affected all of us. For me, it makes me a little more worried and a little more anxious just about everything. And it just feels like things are uncertain. But I know that it's very certain with Sarah and I. I believe that she's God's gift to me, and I'm God's gift to her. We're God's gift for one another, and that's amazing.
When I was 17, I started a girls' discipleship group in my living room called Bright Lights. Bright stands for being radiant in godliness, holiness, and testimony. And I just really wanted to encourage these younger girls in their walk with the Lord and share things that God had done in my life, and to encourage them that the teenage years can be great years for the Lord. They do not have to be years of rebellion and irresponsibility and all the things that the world says. Well, that little group began to grow, and I was super excited to see the Lord working in their lives and to see their hearts for the Lord, and I knew I was learning the most by leading this group. And then after a few years, I started having some other older girls and moms ask me about Bright Lights and say, how did you start that group? And do you have any ideas for us or resources we could use? And so I began to put together some training in discipleship, just of things I had learned from leading this group of girls. And then that turned into the Bright Lights Leaders Training. And so over the years, we've been able to train many older girls and moms and help them to start Bright Lights groups. And it's been really encouraging to see the Lord raising up young ladies who have a heart for Him, who want to shine their light brightly for Him in this world. And the Lord has continued to open doors for our ministry, teaching leaders training conferences, teaching girls conferences, Strong in the Lord conference to younger girls, Radiant Purity, Speak Truth in Your Heart to older girls, writing some books and resources. Just the Lord has continued to open doors over the years. But really the heart of our ministry has always been to train older girls and moms in discipleship and help encourage them and equip them to disciple younger girls or start a Bright Lights group. So we've been so blessed by that, and Andrew and I have a lot of ideas and vision for what God may have for us, so each of us and us together in the future, and we are just excited to see how God leads and to see what He has in store next.
I have loved every ministry that I've served at. For a while, I worked with the Navigators. I also, for a while, helped at a discipleship ministry at a Christian college. And then at my home church, I did college ministry, working with college students for 5 years. And then after grad school, I was the young adult pastor at Parkview Church. and greatly enjoyed it, working with young adults in their 20s and 30s for about 10 years. Right now, I'm taking a little break from ministry, working on my health. But in the future, I hope to be a teacher and a pastor and focus on leadership development. I also hope to help Sarah in her ministry. We just wanted to let you all know that we appreciate your prayers and support. We've been overwhelmed with your joy and your presence and your cards. We know it's a bummer not to be all together, but we know that many of you will be tuning in and enjoying us from afar, and we'll feel your love from afar. So thank you so much for your support and your prayers, and God bless.